Alright, hello there. Welcome back to my journey to make sure that the truth does not pass on with my father. A quick recap of what happened in the last video. My dad lied about my mom and I raising my cousin, his niece. He lied about me having a bad man picker, as I like to call it, and apparently being willing to put up with a lazy partner while also being so incompetent that I couldn't do any of my own home repairs. Also lied that I had a home to repair in the first place, and all sorts of other things that he lied about. All of this came out. He was in surgery at the time, was able to make that out mostly successfully. They were able to extract most of the blood clot, and he was recuperating in the ICU. So going forward, I'm going to combine events, the events of the next couple days. It was like 2 days before I flew out to Aruba. This video is probably going to be shorter than the other ones, mostly because the day I actually leave for Aruba is so insane that I feel like that needs its own separate video. There's a ton of receipts and a ton of screenshots and everything that I'm gonna have to put into that one. So it's gonna take a long time to go through that one. So this one, I'm gonna try to keep it kind of short. So these couple of days before that final day consists of a lot of planning for family to visit. So I was arranging with a lot of different family members who wanted to either come drive down here or were local and wanted to come see him. I was just trying to text and arrange so that way we could make sure that he was seeing people. I was keeping people updated. I had a ton of people texting me, asking me, how's he doing, what's going on. So sending out those types of updates. I was fighting the American healthcare system, which was an absolute nightmare. For anybody who's done that before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My dad had that insurance issue, right? So it came out as we were talking that apparently he had a domestic violence charge, a DV charge. And so I didn't know anything about this because this happened while he and I were estranged. I was not aware of this. And apparently something about if you have a DV charge, you are not able to be covered by Medi-Cal without accounting for this DV charge. Like you have to get some sort of special permissions or something. So he had been dropped from his insurance. And so I'm sitting there trying to work with the caseworker, trying to figure out how much my dad made income-wise, what kind of insurance he'd be, eligible for. He said that he made one amount. When I'm looking at his pay stubs that I finally got, it was saying that he was making something else. He was really actively not helping me. He was not helping me to help him to make this easier for him. He was actively just telling us different lies and saying all of these things that weren't true. And I was going based off of the things that he's saying, because what else can I do? I don't have any other information to verify with. Trying to go off of what he's saying is true, and then actively finding out that that's not true, and then we fill out the wrong paperwork or something. So things like that kept happening over and over again over those couple of days, and it was really, really frustrating. I was getting very irritated with him. Not sure how much of that was just his pride and the fact that he didn't want us to know how much he made, how much he was working, all of those types of things, or if he was just actually delusional because he was in the hospital recovering from a stroke. Not entirely sure. The nurses kept assuring me that that's all that it was. However, having been raised by this man for a long time and also knowing that he had actively lied about all these other things, I didn't put anything past him. So I wasn't really sure. I was trying not to be too frustrated, but I was very, very frustrated, definitely. Also, just to pull the curtain back a little bit on the healthcare system that we have here, no one talks to each other, okay? So my dad had a cancer specialist. He had a primary doctor, like the doctor who came and checked on him, like the floor doctor. He had a neurologist and a physical therapist, okay? And there was probably someone else in there that I'm forgetting now. He had all of these different doctors. None of them talk to each other. They have notes to share, but they don't actually share the notes, okay? Or if they share the notes, they don't actually read through them. They kind of glance through them when they're in there. And so it's super frustrating because, you're sitting there, why are you wearing a neck brace? Because he has a steel rod in his neck. That's why he's wearing the neck brace. Oh, well, I didn't know that. They're just not sharing information. They're like, oh, let's try taking this off. Let's try moving you in this way, which could be potentially very harmful to him because he's not supposed to take it off, right? So they kept doing things, and I was like, no, I don't think you're supposed to do that, because they did say that it looked like he had a fracture in his neck. And so he had the neck brace on because they thought that he had a fracture. So it's one of those things where it's like, you do not want to move him around if he has a fracture. You don't want to make it any worse, but they weren't reading the notes. And so I kind of felt like I had to be there because he wasn't really speaking up for himself. And I just felt like it just was too many things were going to slip through the cracks. It made me very anxious leaving him there by himself. But again, no one talks to each other. I can hardly blame them because our system is very overburdened. They have a lot of things that they're trying to take care of. But it would be really frustrating because, like, you know, they would say, oh, your cancer's returned. You have a fracture. You have a mass in the back of your skull. But then his cancer doctor would walk in and say, no, you don't have a fracture, and you don't have a mass in the back of your skull. Those are from remnants from the last time that you had multiple myeloma, like when it was active, and it's not active anymore. I'm looking through it. You don't have, nothing is indicating that this is active in you anymore. So he's sitting there panicking. We're all like, okay, and I'm sitting there like, does he have it or not? And the cancer doctor is assuring me he doesn't. I talked to the neurologist when the neurologist comes in, and the neurologist is saying, no, he still has it. So it was like, it was a lot of miscommunications. I was trying to get the truth, and it was really, really hard to get anyone on the same page. I was also talking to other family that he had lied to. So, you know, he was saying to some family members, oh yeah, I'm healthy. I walk every day, 2 miles a day. I'm active. I walk my dog every single day. My dad did not exercise. He barely was able to kind of lumber down the stairs because he was on a second floor apartment, was barely able to lumber down the stairs with his dog that he had and take the dog to go to the bathroom. Like, it was hard for him. He didn't really exercise that much. He told some family members that he'd given up smoking. He definitely had not done that. He said this, you know, that he worked too much, that he was working too much. And so some of the family members were like, well, of course he had this problem. He's not taking care of himself because he works so much. And I'm looking at his pay stubs and I'm looking at the hours that he puts in. I'm like, no, he could have made time. Like, he wasn't working too much. Oh, he's working 3 jobs. He was not working 3 jobs. Okay. So again, definitely not. So I'm sitting there arguing on the phone with people, with family members and things who don't know the truth. They're sitting there. I'm actively telling them, no, I'm looking at the truth, or I was there, or I know what's going on. And they're sitting there being like, no, your dad said it was this way. And again, most rational people wouldn't lie that way, right? Like, most rational people don't lie like that. So of course, our natural inclinations as beautiful and trusting human beings is to just believe that somebody is telling you the truth, because who would possibly think to make something up like that? Like, to what end? Why would you do that? So anyway, I'm sitting there arguing with people and trying to set things right, and they're just not having it. Most of them are not having it, or they're just very confused. And it's like, you know what? I just had to kind of wipe my hands and say, time will tell. You'll see. We'll all see. It is what it is. But yeah, most of the time it was just his girlfriend, it was him, and it was me. It was the 3 of us just sitting there because, you know, other people had to go to work. I was very fortunate that I had kind of a gap in time because I just finished up my semester. And so I had a little bit of a gap in time. So I was able to be there, you know, all day. I had to take a couple of like work calls and things like that in between, but I was able to be at the hospital most of the time. He alternated between a few different faces while we were there. And my dad used to do this and still does this, or did this very often, where he would change the personality that he had and the way that he talked and the way that he just interacted with people based off of who he was interacting with. But he was changing between a couple of these faces while we were sitting there. So one of them, he was being a baby, right? He was so baby. He's sitting there crying, weeping, making sad little boy faces, you know, like there was this little face that he made that always made me sit there and feel like, oh, like I felt bad for him. I had to kind of steel myself and be like, no, don't feel sorry for him, because if you show him that you feel that sort of sympathy, he'll really like lean into that. So I had to be really careful. His girlfriend and I, you know, again, are holding his hand at any given time, really. That, like, so he's always, like, the hand that he has feeling in anyway. We were holding his hand all day long. It was either she was holding his hand or I was holding his hand. We took turns. So he was never really alone. He was always with somebody and felt our presence even when he was sleeping. And then if he was sleeping and we tried to get up and move, he'd be like, where are you going? Why are you leaving me? So he would be a baby. That was the first one. The second face he'd wear a lot was laughter. And that one is pretty obvious, because especially just with the way that I am. We're sitting there making jokes. We're, you know, talking about old movie quotes. I'm sitting there just, you know, anything we could do, just like pulling old Karate Kid quotes out of nowhere. Like, I'm sitting there, you know, imitating the Sato voice from the second Karate Kid. I'm not going to do that here because it's a lot. But yeah, so we were doing things like that. And then the third one, and this was kind of infused throughout all of the faces, was a lot of pain. right? So he was obviously in a lot of pain. I can't even imagine how much pain he was in general, but and anger was really infused into that pain throughout it all, which made it really difficult. So it's like, as much as I felt sorry for him at certain points, then he would start to be really just awful and rude and say just very horrible things to us. He started blaming us for things, you know, and how, you know, he would say like, you know, this is all your fault that I'm in here. Or he would say, you know, you're the one who's hurting me. Or, you know, none of you want to help me. None of you actually care about me. You don't care about me. I don't even know why you're here. You shouldn't even be here right now. He would say like really nasty things like that. All because we weren't giving him cigarettes, because we weren't going down the street and getting him a 7-Eleven hot dog or chips. We weren't getting him a soda. And I just kept emphatically telling him, those things are the reason that you are in this hospital bed right now. So no, you don't get to have those, at least not on my watch. Like, I'm not going to go get them for you. So no, you don't get to have those. And he would just be really obviously aggressive and mean and just nasty about it. Like, you don't actually want to help me. You don't ever care about me. The whole thing. And it's like, would I be here if I didn't care about you, especially considering the things that I found out, right? Like, but that's neither here nor there. But he would just be really mean, just really mean-spirited, really insulting. He yelled a lot. He yelled at the nurses and was really aggressive and mean to the nurses. And I kept reminding him, I kept saying, you need to put your nice face on, you know, because what these nurses, again, are overworked and very overburdened with the amount of patients that they have. But like, who is going to be inclined to want to help you if you're actively being mean and rude to them and telling them how you hate them and you think they're stupid and all this other stuff? He was being awful to the nursing staff. And I just told him, I said, you need to put your nice face on, because if you don't have your nice face on, no one is going to want to help you. If you're going to be here and be mean and nasty to people, no one is going to want to help you. And none of them are helping me anyway. And I told him, just I need you to put your nice face on. I know you know how to be charming because you've done it my whole life. Be charming right now. You need to be charming. And then he would switch into his, you know, charming. I'm so sorry. He'd apologize to them, you know, I'm just in a lot of pain right now. And so, like, I just had to keep reminding him of that. But he also, you know, would say things like, I wish, he would wish the way that he felt on us. So he would be like, something would happen to him. And then he would be like, I wish that you could feel, I wish you could feel what I'm feeling right now. I wish you had this happen to you so you could feel what I'm feeling right now. He would say that to me. And, one of the nurses who was just an absolute angel that was in that unit, I loved her. She said, you don't mean that. You don't mean that, Robert. And just like very quickly shut him down. He was like, no, I don't mean that, but I'm in a lot of pain right now. But he kept saying things like that. He said that to me a few times where he wished that pain that he was feeling onto me, which is a lot to take in, right? Because I feel like most rational parents wouldn't wish that on their child, no matter how much duress they were under. But yeah, my dad definitely did that. So it was really hard because, again, I'm staying there, don't really want to be there, but I'm staying there. In the meantime, his girlfriend has his phone, and she's getting more and more upset because a lot of the women that my dad was talking to are messaging him. Now, mind you, my dad's always been a bit of a Casanova. I kind of mentioned this already, you know, there's all of that stuff in there. But he makes a lot of friends that are women, and especially in the workplace, he makes a lot of female friends. He may be flirting with them, but to him, that's not cheating, right? So he'll sit there and call them honey, or, you know, like love, mi amor, those types of things. Like, he'll sit there and call them little pet names. But to him, that's not the same as like cheating. So he's made these relationships with these women and set them up in this way. And so she's getting kind of upset. I mean, rightfully, like, I can understand why, right? You're sitting there reading it and you're sitting there seeing him, you yourself are being bombarded with text messages by all these other women who are trying to get at my dad. Not even necessarily, again, in a romantic way, but it feels that way. I can see why it would feel that way. And so she's upset. And then I'm sitting there just telling her the truth. My dad cheats. My dad lies. My dad was never involved consistently in my life growing up. He was very sporadically involved all throughout my childhood. Again, I have a lot of really fun and fond memories with him growing up, but sometimes he went months without seeing me. You know, it was never like a consistent thing. There was a consistent schedule he was supposed to come see me on with like the court order and everything, but it just never really happened that way. He didn't really do child support You know, he also kept me away from a lot of my family on his side, a lot of my Polynesian family. And he was just kind of generally just disinterested in me as a child. And he would be the first to say that. He always used to say that, you know, he'd say, oh yeah, I was out there, and, you know, every time he'd be like, Dad, can you come to this? Dad, can we hang out? Like, I literally have like in some of my old notebooks, like little contracts I would try to get him to sign saying like, I will come see you and we will spend time together every Wednesday of the month or something, like, or every Wednesday of the week. Like, I would try to get him to commit to coming to see me, and he just never was interested. He always had his own thing going on, and he was always doing his own thing. I mean, it is what it is. You know, he was a relatively young father. For me, I think anything under 30 is young as far as like raising a kid, but like, you know, it doesn't mean you do it poorly or whatever. Many people have done that. I just think that he was 20 when he had me, when they had me. So it's like, obviously he's still developing, you know, and he's just trying to figure this out too as he goes along. Same thing with my mom. But you know, my mom was there. But he was not. He just wasn't interested. And he always said how, you know, I, again, would try to get him to hang out with me, try to get him to spend time with me and commit to spending time with me. And then he wasn't interested. And now that I'm an adult, he's running after me, trying to get me to spend time with him. And I just don't have time anymore, you know? My mom always used to tell him, it's going to be gone in a blink. Like, you're going to blink and she's going to be too old and she's not going to have time for you anymore, Robert. She was constantly warning him about that when I was younger, because, and he was always the first one to say that, like, your mom told me it was going to be like this, because, you know, I just thought I had all the time in the world and I just never gave that time to you when you were a kid. So anyway, that's not the story that he paints to most of the people that he met later on and the women that he was trying to date and things. That was not the story that he really tried to paint. But if I was standing there and he and I were talking about it, that was something he would usually admit to pretty openly. So his girlfriend is shook, right? My dad has always showed up for her. She was telling me, you know, oh, if I was sick, he would be the first one to take care of me. He'd be the first one to, you know, try to DoorDash me sick supplies, like, you know, cough drops and medicine and things like that. He would try to cook for her. He always did things for her. And, you know, this again was not entirely surprising to me, because he always did this. He was very quick to throw me overboard for whatever woman he was with at the moment. That's just how it always was when I was a kid. You know, he would commit to going to do something with me, and then, oh, something came up, but then I find out he was actually, like, his girlfriend or at the time was free and wanted to go out with him. And even still as an adult, like, while he was dating this other girl, I would invite him to things. Like, I invited him to a Lauryn Hill concert at the beginning of the month. And I said, you know, your birthday just passed. Mine is coming up, because his birthday is March 26th. So it's like right before mine. And I'm like, it's in between our birthdays. Like, let's go to this concert together. Cause he loved Lauryn Hill. I mean, I love Lauryn Hill. And so I was like, let's go together. Like, this would be so cool. And he said yes at first, and then he canceled on me like 24 hours before the concert. Oh, sorry, something came up with work. I had to go to work. And I ended up finding out later from the girlfriend, oh no, he came over and spent that time with me. He was there the whole weekend for me. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like he would commit to things with me, and then his girlfriend would offer him something, like offer to spend time with him or whatever else, and then, you know, it was goodbye Sally, right? Like, it was not my turn anymore. So anyway, so she's sitting there shook, because this is something that she just was not anticipating. And I had to confirm this with my mom too, because it's easy for me as a kid to say, I remember always trying to get a hold of you. And even him admitting that he was not a very present father, but checking with my mom, like, you know, did he used to come with me to doctor's appointments? Did he check in on my health? And not really, you know, but I was always kind of used as a prop for him. Even in his car, he used to keep, like, he would purposely, anytime he would see me, he would steal like my rubber bands or my hair clips and things like that. And he'd have like pictures of me when I was really young, and he would stick them in his truck. He would stick them in whatever car he had. And, you know, he would kind of be like, oh yeah, like, I'm a girl dad, even though it was like, I didn't leave those things there. He actually took them from my house and put them in his car. I'm assuming just because it was a conversation starter for people. But again, he didn't really see me that much, especially when I was super duper young. So back to present, at the hospital, he was acting up pretty badly those couple of days. And really, he kept trying to get up. He kept trying to, you know, like, threaten to pull things out and pull the tubes out and whatever else. He kept lashing out. I kept making, a really stupid joke. I kept making Bob Marley jokes with him where I'd be like, you know, like, no, now is not the time to get up, stand up. You need to lay down and stay put. Don't pull your feeding tube out. I think that's how the song goes. Like, I was making jokes like that with him, just again, to get him to stop acting hysterical. Anytime family would come though, he was on his best behavior. So, you know, we had a couple of my other, uncles who aren't really uncles, cousin uncles, anyone who has, if you're any sort of, you understand what I'm talking about. If you're, especially if you're Polynesian, you know what I'm talking about. It's like any cousin is actually an uncle, especially if they're older than you. So cousin uncles, right? They would come over and visit. He was on his best behavior. He was super well behaved. The second they would leave, he'd start acting up again instantly. And so the girlfriend and I had just pretty much had it that night. We'd had it. We both went out to eat in the waiting room. You know, while my mom was there, but my mom is in there, and the girlfriend goes in there with my mom, and he's purposely trying to use my mom to irritate his girlfriend. He's sitting there like, you know, they were able to take a sponge and wet his lips because he was really thirsty, because he's not able to actually like drink anything. He just has the feeding tube and then the saline bag. And so, you know, the girlfriend would be like, here, like, let me put the water on your lips. And no. And he's yelling at her and cussing her out. And then my mom comes in and he's like, no, I like Amber's water better. Can you do the water from your water bottle? Like, all of this stuff. Like, he was, after we had been there all day long, you know, she's literally helping him to go to the bathroom. And he was being such a brat, right? Like, he could be such a brat sometimes. And honestly, like, I miss him. Like, I miss that so much more than I actually thought I would. I miss him being a brat. I miss complaining about him all the time. I miss getting annoyed with him because he could be really irritating sometimes. But he used to love seeing me annoyed. That was something he really loved. He loved to annoy me and kind of irritate me. He loved watching me go off on doctors and stuff like that and just get really, like, irritated by people not communicating well, and he just got a real kick out of me being irritated. And so I feel like he used to do it on purpose all the time. But I actually really miss that. So anyway, we stay until a little after closing. The girlfriend and I are pretty friendly at this point now. There's definitely been some trauma bonding there, right? Probably, for sure. My mom and I leave, and I'm still stressing because I'm leaving the country for a little over a week the very next day. The plan is to go to the hospital to be with my dad, the first half of the day, and then leave straight to the airport, the next, like that day. So, I sleep even less than normal, was very tired, which is admittedly a very first world problem. So I will definitely take that, right? But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what fresh hell awaited me the next morning. I'm going to cut it there because the next one is going to be an absolute doozy. The receipts that I keep mentioning, that I've been mentioning, saying how I have receipts for all of this, we are going to be drowning in them in the next video, okay? There are just so many of them. There are so many screenshots and all these other things. I don't even want to spoil any of it, but we'll be going through some of those in the next video. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Please remember to keep an open mind and to be kind. The truth will follow behind.